This is June the 27th, 1971. I'm in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Dan Boyd Porter. He is the former mayor of this city, past president of the Porter Lions Club, member of the city council for 2 years, and a 15-year member of the fire department. He is in partnership with his father of the King's Garage. Mr. Boyd, you said you can remember the Christian war camp here in Porter when you were a little boy.
Yes, ma'am. Their location here in town, of course, the Sands portion, what's not called the stockade, is a couple blocks up the street from the garage, but the offices quarters is adjoining or next door, housing an old two-story building, which is on that location at that time. And actually being next door to them every day, I got to know all the officers, most of the enlisted men who were in charge of the camp. They had a number of vehicles, trucks, jeeps, and so forth, used in their activities. Among the prisoners, the German prisoners, there were 2 or 3 first-class mechanics. Of course, these officers utilized their talents to help them with the jeeps and trucks. And since the garage was conveniently located, many times they came over and used our equipment, and tools, and jacks, and so forth, and worked on the military vehicles. There was one prisoner in particular that I recall. I can't even recall his name right now, but 2 of them could speak English, both the disciplines. Most of them could speak English at all. This particular boy was a mechanic, and probably at this time was in his late 20s, and he could speak broken English enough to communicate with me, and at least make it known what he was trying to tell me. Before they left, he presented me with a little pocket-sized dictionary. It's called Bond's German-American Dictionary. Each word is translated from German to American. So if you could pronounce the word in either language, you could use it as cross-reference. And he told me that this was how he learned most of the English that he knew. He wanted to give me this so that someday I might want to speak German. Anyway, he left it with me. The sergeant in charge of the compound at that time was named Haskell. He was from back southeast in Mississippi, out in this town. But, anyway, he was a southern boy and talked with a slow drove. But most of the men were real nice people. I seemed to enjoy this country, even though many of them were not native to this part of the United States. These boys gave no trouble whatsoever that I could remember. And like I say, the ones that I could communicate with were quite happy to be here and out of there actually fighting. They were just counting the days like our men would when they would go back home. Because in my own workplace, these boys talk to different people about these boys going out on the workplace. I know one thing I used to remember quite vividly, we had a lot of problems in those years with our electrical power. By that I mean from the thunderstorms or lightning, which is quite common in summertime. Almost invariably, we have power failures. Anytime we have an electrical storm, we need power. No matter what time of the night it was, those people had to take their vehicles, they can all the way around the bridge on I think you probably, that would be a correct statement. If those that was supposed to be, they were fighting it. I guess you say, and they were, to me, it seems that they would much rather be out on work parties than simply spending time in the compound. Yeah. I believe the best amount of money that would be about that. They did an awful lot of work right here in the city. In other words, I know in our own home, they were attacking brought out, cleaned all the roads. If you had a yard that was not level and you wanted to redo the surface and make it easy to mow, they bring the roof out with a red hose. And when they finished, it was just spot.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Barbara Jean. Well, I was born during the time of the Depression, and I myself didn't really know too much about the Depression, but I suffered through the coming in of the Depression because of my family. My mother, she was a housewife, and she had 12 children. And my father worked on the WPA, and we were really hard up for food and money. We had to do everything to suffer for a bite to eat during those times.
What kind of work did that father do?
He worked for the WPA. That was the organization that they had then for people that were unskilled and with no skill. And they were on, it was an organization where they helped the poor people. I don't know exactly what it was. It was called the WPA, but I don't know what it stood for.
Well, do you know what kind of work they
Well, I don't know what the men done, but I know the ladies, they sewed. They were working on the sewing machine.
Do you know how much they got paid for that?
No, I really don't know what, but I know it wasn't very much. Maybe $12 a week, something like that. $7 to $12 a week.
And what about food? How did it range?
Well, in those days, you could get a loaf of bread for 5 cents, 5 and 10 cents. And everything was pretty cheap. But the thing about it is that you didn't make enough money to even buy food.
What about your clothes?
Pay for that. I mean, food was cheap, but you couldn't pay for it. Now we were given clothes. We were given clothes through the WPA and through charitable organizations. They gave us clothes, and through the school, when I was going to school, my teachers would take me to a little room where they had clothes that they were giving to all the poor people, and I was considered to be one of the poorest there, and they gave me clothes to go to school.
But what about your brothers and sisters? Did any of them have to work?
My brothers and sisters, they done what little work they could do. I mean, by little extra work that they could find, but it wasn't very much work to be found. I had one brother that was he was in the CC camp. That was the organization that was put up for something like a charitable organization. He went to the CC camp in order to provide food and clothing for us. That was my oldest brother.
What was his name?
His name was Alfred Reed.
Could you tell me of any stories or happenings that were unusual at that time, and could you tell me about people actually starving?
Well, I don't know about people actually starving, but I know that a lot of people suffering from malnutrition, and no one had the right menus. We never did have vegetables and things like we should have. We would get our food from the poultries and from the packing house. They would have, just like the food that they would throw away, the heads and the feet of the chicken. Well, my father and mother would go there, and they would get the heads and the feet of the chicken, and my mother would make dumplings out of them. And actually, we was big children before we even knew that a chicken didn't have nothing but the head and the feet. And we ate everything that was left and thrown away. Just like on the hog, we had what you call the chitlins. That was the hog innards. And we would go to the packing house and get those, and we'd bring them home, and it would have all of the waste still in them. And we'd have to bring them home and clean them. And I know my brothers would sit up all night sometimes cleaning the hog innards, and we'd eat them. And a lot of times we would eat a lot of the waste that was left in the hog innards.
What about education?
Well, we managed to get our education, but it was pretty rough. We got free lunch from the schools they provided. We'd have to go about a block from our school to get free lunch. And now this was during the time that I was coming up. But my brothers were quite older than I was, and they had a much harder time than I did.
Could you tell me some things that happened that were more difficult for them than it was for you?
Well, just like when my brothers went to finish school, they didn't have a suit to finish school to wear under their cap and gowns. I know they told me, and it seemed kind of funny to me at that time, but it was really serious, that they would have to, one of my brothers was trying to play football in school, and the only thing that he had to graduate in was his football jersey. And during the time when the school was time for the closing of school, it was during the hot months of the year, and they had to wear, a lot of them had on winter clothes that people had gave them, and that's what they had to wear under their cap and gown. And they didn't have shoes. One of my brothers said he had to finish school with his football spikes on.
Well, what do you think was the cause of the depression? Or who caused the depression?
Well, I really don't know too much about who caused it, but from what I heard was when Hoover came in for president, then everything just went haywire, and everybody was just thrown into a state of depression, and money was hard to come by, jobs, and everything.
Can you tell me anything about your neighbors? How how it was on them as far as jobs and money and education? Was it just as hard for them, or was it easier, or what?
Well, now, most of the people that I knew, they were going through the same situation that we were, because we lived in a little old place. Well, I'd say about it's considered Tulsa, but it was on the outskirts of Tulsa. It was called South Haven, and everybody there, they were really in the low income bracket, and we had to walk. We had to walk 4 or 5 miles to get water. We had to pack water in barrels. You had to keep your water in barrels on the outside of your house. It was very unsanitary. So you have to load the water and bring it back and keep it outside in the barrels. Then you just have to go out and get the water as you need it for washing and for cooking purposes.
What was the purpose of keeping the water outside?
Well, we didn't have no place for the barrels on the inside. The house was small, and it was just a place. Everybody kept the water on the outside because there was large barrels, and the little kitchen was small, and we just didn't have no room for it.
Well, did you own your house or did you pay rent?
No, we paid rent, but it was very little rent that you had to pay. It was actually really the houses should have been condemned because there was really no decent place to live. Now I remember one place we lived. We had to. There was 12 children of us, and when a storm would come up, the house would rock back and forth. And my father would always tell us, say, 6 get on one side and 6 get on the other side to try to level it down. That's just how bad it was.
What about utilities? Did you have gas?
No, we didn't have any gas. We had coal. We burnt coal and kerosene. And we didn't have any running water. We had outhouses. Most of them were filled up and we just go with it. It would be a lot of children around the corner trying to get to me. And sometimes my brothers would get in fights with the other boys that trying to get the best pieces of meat. And they would fight over it. Well, doing all of this, and in the bad state that we were in, my mother still took time out to go to church every Sunday and try to get us ready to go to church. And I remember we didn't have any clothes to wear. And she would go around the neighborhood in different places and ask people for their tails of their dresses. And she would take them and have them made for us. The tails of other people's dresses that was good. And she'd have them all boxed up together and make us a dress. And when we walked down the street, a lot of people would recognize their parts of their clothes. And they'd say, there go my dress, there go my dress. believed in praying for what they got. And I know my mother, she would get up a lot of times in the mornings and she would have no food to prepare for the children, and she wouldn't have any clothes to make a fire. And she would take and wrap us all in blankets and put old coats around us to keep us warm. And then she would just get out on her knees and pray. And I know one time she told me that while she was praying, a fellow knocked on the door and told her that he had some coal out that door and some groceries. And she said that she knew that the Lord had sent him by there because she didn't have anything to eat and no fuel to keep us warm.
In these houses that you say it should have been condemned a long time ago, did the government have anything to say about the people living in these?
No, the government didn't have anything to say about it. It was just people going and living where they could, getting a place to stay. And at that time, they didn't have anything like the urban renewal or anything like that. They didn't have anything to say about where a person lived. The person lived wherever they could. And everybody tried to get the cheapest place they could because they couldn't afford anything better. So they would get something that they could afford, which would be maybe $10 or $15 a month. And it wouldn't have no glasses. Wouldn't have no window pane. They'd have to board it up, board the windows up. And I remember so well when we stayed in South Haven. Well, the house we were staying in, my mother's house couldn't afford any furniture. And I had a brother that was real stylish. And we'd go out and get a carton, orange carton, crate. And we'd bring them in the house and make seats and chairs out of it. And then he liked to be fancy, and he'd always try to decorate. So he'd go get maybe he would get a can of tomatoes tomatoes had been in with a big round red tomato on it. And he'd set it up there, and he thought that made it look pretty. And that was the furniture that we had in the house to sit on. And most all of us laid on the floor. We didn't have any bed. bad shape at that time. And the ones that did have it, they kind of looked down upon the ones that didn't.
Well, could you say then that the blacks in this time, were they close together? Did they work together and try to help each other? Or were they all out for themselves? Family, self-family?
Well, I don't know too much about that because I was pretty small at the time. I just remember the conditions. I don't remember exactly if the black people stuck together or what they done. But I can only speak for our family, which my father, he tried to do everything he could for the black man. I know one time he was running, it was a white fellow that was running for office. And he came home and brought a lot of cards for us to give out with his picture on it and had on there vote for him for whatever office he was running for. And he had 12 children, so he brought all the cards to us, and he had us all to give these cards out to people that was coming on the street. That was our job. When a person come along, we'd give them a card and tell them to vote for this man. Well, this man got in office. And when he got in office, the first thing he done was fired my father.
This is the white man?
This was the white man.
Do you know his name?
No, I don't know his name. I can't remember his name. And I don't remember what office he was running for.
Well, why did he come?
I don't know. But that's the first thing he done. Well, I mean, he was firing the blacks. And he got fired. He was one of the first men that got fired. And he was one of the men that caused him to get into office.
Was there any blacks?
But they promised us everything. When he was running, he promised him a better job. He promised him salary, high salary, and everything. But as soon as he got in, he cut him off.
Did he hire more whites?
Yes, he hired more whites.
They
started hiring whites. Because at that time, nothing run the garbage route but a Negro. They didn't have, whites didn't run on the garbage route. That was the Negro's job.
Well, what about, were there any blacks running for office then?
No, you never would hear of a black running for office, for no kind of office. They just was, I guess, able to vote. And then they didn't know at the time what they were voting for.
But did they have any restrictions regarding the vote?
No, they didn't. They didn't have any restrictions. The only thing is that they would give these big talks out here and give these rallies. They would soften up the black man and tell him what all they were going to do. Tell him what all they were going to do for him and what they would do if they got into office. And then after they got into office, they would forget all about the black man.
Well, how did the blacks feel about this today? Did this make them want to get more education and try to better
themselves? This made them want to get more education and try to better themselves. That's what started the ball rolling. After they found out that they were mistreated in every respect, and that the white man was telling them a lot of things that were untrue, and they didn't understand these things. This made them to decide to get an education so they could look into the things themselves and see and weigh it out and see just what it was all about before they would vote for this a certain person.
Well, the person that your father was helping to get into this office, was he a Republican or Democrat?
I think he was a Republican. I'm sure he was a Republican.
Then your father was helping the Republican.
Well, I don't know how it come up in that he was helping the Republican, because I think what it